Well, thank you, Paige, and hello, everyone. I'm here today with one of our star project managers, Jackie McGarry.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here with you.
Jackie comes from a community manager background, and I thought she'd be helpful in our discussion today of uPlanIt. We want you to have success at your association, budgeting to offset the ongoing deterioration of your common areas, and we feel our clients would be more likely to embrace their reserve funding plan if they could really get behind the wheel and actually see what kind of future comes from their reserve funding plan. Well, this is the agenda we'll be using for today's program. I'll start out with a brief overview, and then we'll soon get right to uPlanIt and put it through its paces. We call uPlanIt an online reserve calculator because in our minds, that's exactly what it is. uPlanIt allows you to actually work with your reserve study data, calculate things in real time, exploring what happens if you tweak some of your numbers. But it's more than just a calculator. It's built to National Reserve Study standards. So all calculation tables and results are consistent with those National Reserve Study standards. So you don't have to wonder if the interest rate is calculating correctly or percent funded is being calculated or reported correctly. It's all built into the model. What uPlanIt does is add to your completed reserve study, making it come to life. Rather than just being information on a page, it is real-time data that you can manipulate. This means you can take ownership of your reserve plan, seeing how it fits and possibly adjusting it as you see fit. Well, when we had a new driver in our home, we stressed that the concept that there is no whoops in driving. Driving is serious business and you need to be paying attention and be prepared. And the same is true for budgeting at an association. uPlanIt is where you can test out alternatives to what's recommended in the reserve study, so you don't have to be wondering anymore. You can see for yourself what happens when you make a change, and that prevents being a few years down the road and saying, whoops, we shouldn't have done that. Well, it all starts here at www.reservestudy.com. And if you're familiar with our website, the top right is our Client Center, where our clients log in to access their completed reserve study. So without further delay, let's log in. It looks just like this, and you'll enter your email address. You can all see how fast of a typer I am and how many typos I make. Is what we get for the live demo, right, Jackie?
Absolutely. That's what happens.
Okay. Well, what we want to do in this first part is show how to log in and just kind of kick the tires a little bit and show what actually goes on. So let's pick this one property here. We'll call it Lincoln Fountain Villas. This is the view that a client gets if they're a portfolio manager. If you're a board member, you'll only see your property, but a portfolio manager will see all the properties in their portfolio. So let's log in and click on Lincoln Fountain Villas here. Our clients are pretty familiar that they'll log in, see their completed reserve study, and let's do just that. Let's look at their executive summary. And we will see that in their reserve study, and if you're following along, their starting reserve balance is $210,000. They are 43.4% funded, and we're recommending $4,000 a month contributions for next year. Okay, so let's go back and let's now open up uPlanIt. And here it is. Here's their list of components.
So, Robert,
yeah.
the component list is going to look exactly the same as it is on the reserve study. So we want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
Absolutely. The completed reserve study is ported directly into uPlanIt. So these are the components from your completed reserve study. Well, let's take a look at it. We had it here. The first one is 9 and 0 and 9,600, 25, 10 and 60,000. These two are unfunded, so 90 and 9600, 2510, 60,000. Like you said, it's literally their information. The grade ones are unfunded. All the white ones are funded components, but here's your component list. This property has building exteriors, a chapter of building interiors, parking garages, mechanical and electrical. And then, a couple things to show. We have a few helps. There's this overview video of what uPlanIt does, and then every page has its own video tutorial. You can go to the control panel where you can see they're $210,000, 1% interest, 3% inflation. Jackie, let's change the starting balance. What's a good number?
Let's go down to 180,000.
Okay, 180,000. Let's save that. And since I've worked with this property before, I know that now with a little less starting cash, they fall short of being 100% funded.
And they fall pretty low there in those couple of years, underneath 20%. So that's concerning.
Yeah. So this is an association that probably doesn't want to get too aggressive with their funding plan at first, because they are, as you suggest, kind of low to start with. But this is a recommendations page where you can change things. I can click the full solver and see what it takes to get back to 100% funded, and it's 4140. So these are the kind of things you can do. You can also check and see what it's like to be baseline funded, where they are just barely above zero. And boy, they don't really save any, 3830. So we have an ability to do a custom override here and then see all the tables and charts. You can see what your components are.
I think that 30-year summary is the best one to show.
Yeah, let me do that. There we go.
Over time. So it gives you the whole picture.
Right. All of your numbers all on one page. And on every page, you have the ability, again, there's tutorials on every page and an ability to print. Now, one thing I want to point out is we've made a couple of changes here. We went baseline funding and we have a new starting balance. And I just want to point out that the reserve study did not change. The reserve study is what it is, $4,000, $210,000. So uPlanIt is fundamentally your area to work with the numbers yourself and try and test things. Is that fair?
That's perfect.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next item.
Reset?
Yeah. Oh, good point. That's good point. Every page has a reset button. And watch here, we change the starting balance to 180,000. Reset, and there goes back to 210,000. And the same here on the recommendations page. If you want to go back, otherwise you can press save and it'll save this case. But remember, all the board members have access. Well, it's up to you how many board members you have provide access to this. But anytime you find something that you really like, you may want to print it and save it because someone else may click reset and restore it to its original. And this allows you to try a bunch of minor variations from the original reserve study. So you can always kind of go back to home base. And so that's how all these different pages work together. Again, tutorials on every page and print, reset, save, kind of standard-ish kind of stuff. Okay, so Jackie, how about we spend now a few minutes talking about how you can use uPlanIt to make some adjustments to those components, costs that are the projections in the reserve study.
Right. So you've got a big asphalt project coming up.
Let's see if we can find a property that has that. Okay, well, here in uPlanIt, you can adjust the cost, the timing. You can delete a component. You can unfund it, leave it there, just don't put any money towards it, or you can add a component. So let's see what we have. And I think we have a case here that works pretty well. We've got a planned community here. So let's look at this one. Again, the same thing, they're complete a reserve study. Let's go to uPlanIt.
And you notice there, we'll go back to that.
Go back?
when you first when you click into uPlanIt, you get that drop down. No, I'm sorry. Go forward. Go back into the planned community.
Okay.
And click on uPlanIt.
Okay.
And you get that that drop down that says enjoy uPlanIt through 3/31/22. So after your fiscal year starts, you have this this tool to utilize through 3 months after your fiscal year starts. So that'll come up every time. If you don't remember when that is, each time you click on uPlanIt, you'll see that.
Right. We're here in 2021. This is the reserve study for this association's 2022 fiscal year. And so here in 2021, we're working with it, assisting the board, and we even provide access to this tool 3 months into the beginning of next year. But as Jackie mentioned, that's a good reminder that you're always able to see. That's how we manage the annual subscriptions. Okay, so we've got this property here, site assets, recreation assets. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay. And you were suggesting asphalt.
Asphalt is, you know, that's always a big project when you're doing either an overlay or a remove and replace, resurfacing. So that's a good one to
big deal. I want to just take a look at it. And indeed, we've got a big project just a couple of years out. So let's take a look at this one. And that's it. So let's say the board in its wisdom feels like this should be a little different number. So did you see what I did? I clicked the pencil icon to bring this component live. And what do you want to do here, Jackie?
I'd say that they want to try to do it at a little lower price. Let's see what happens there.
We want to go 175 instead of 225. And maybe we'll push it out a year so that they'll do it at one point in time and then they'll seal code it right after. How about that?
Absolutely.
So now save those changes and we'll say pushed out 1 year. How's that? So
that's a great idea. So if you've got more than one board member, or if your manager is working in there and make some changes, then you know what the thinking was on that.
Right. All right. Got notes here, and again, a print feature, so you can always document what you've done. And let's see if we can actually see that difference. Yeah, it was here, and now that project is out here in the 4th year. So it's live, and you can see all your changes. Let's do another couple things. How about we delete a component? I had one here that I thought was a good idea. Soccer goals. At this association, what do we say? They've got a park, and what's a good scenario? The parents donated it, so it's not common area property. How's that?
Absolutely. Or the local soccer team donated to the kids.
Yeah, it's a good trade. They get to come on site to use your park. They provide the equipment. So soccer goals are not funded. They're not association property. Save that change, and all of a sudden, you can see that that line item right here went gray. So even though the numbers are there to remind you, actually I'll make that, was funded until we found out it was not common area. Okay, or something like that. So you can make changes. What do we say? How about we delete a component? How about concrete repairs? They do some concrete repairs to the sidewalks every 5 years. Let's say, what do you say? They do that now from their operating budget?
Absolutely. They're finding they're needing to do it a little bit more, so pushing it over to operating.
Yeah, let's just change that. Cancel. I'm just going to go straight to delete. Boom. Confirm, and that concrete is gone. Okay, so that's how we can, what have we done so far? We've edited, we've unfunded something, we've deleted a component.
How about adding something?
I like that. Okay, let's take this asphalt project. We already shifted it down a little bit in price, but what do you say we split it into 2 phases? You like that?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
That's oftentimes what you're going to have to do anyways.
Yep. Okay, so let's add a component, and this will be added to this first section here. Add a component, and let's do asphalt. 25 years. Let's actually do this on the 4th year. And what's half 175? Let's go 80,000.
Yeah.
We should have done that. We should have planned these in advance.
Should have been 180 for the
Yeah, we should have. But
asphalt.
there's some inefficiencies to doing something twice. Okay, now I want to show you something. It named it the highest number, +1. So I'm just going to save it. You see it went down here, and I don't like that. So let's name it 201, or number it 201. So now it's phase 1 and phase 2. Let's edit this to be a better phase 1 project. First
And let's do that in 3 years rather than 4.
I like your thinking.
First half.
Thank
you.
you.
Do the second half twice?
That's why I've got you on this. 3 years and 80 grand, and first half. I think that's it. We split it into 2. So now let's take a look at it. And yeah, we've split that out. So you see it here, but you also see it in the next year. And we don't have that huge spike that we had at one point in time. And so that's what we can do with components, adding components, pushing them where we want them to be in the list. And obviously, if you like this plan, you're going to want to print it. You can also export it to Excel if you want to fiddle with it another way. And Jackie, you want to show the power of the reset button?
There it is. Press it and everything's going to come back to where you started.
Yep. Okay, so probably the easiest thing to see is this first half and second half. And what do we delete? We delete that concrete line item. So when I press this reset, it'll give us a warning. And there we go, concrete. And let me do that twice. And what did I do? I moved it around. It's probably somewhere else on this list, and I will find that. Okay, well, let's look with let's talk about moving components. But let's now talk about adjusting your funding plan. So in the funding plan, what we're going to deal with here is showing how you can use uPlanIt to adjust your funding plan. Now we were focusing on components with the expenses, and now we're going to focus on the finances, how to prepare for those anticipated costs. And what we're going to do in the funding plan is talk about working with your starting balance, changing assumptions for interest and inflation, making changes to your reserve contribution rate, or changing the whole profile. So Jackie, ready for a demo?
I am ready for a demo.
Okay.
I can tell you as an association manager, former association manager, you know, you are at your budget meeting and you've got some homeowners who are participating and they say, well, we don't like the contribution rate. What do we do? How can we change that? And the benefit of this is that you can do it right while you're there, show the homeowners we've changed this, look at what it does to our funding. So I think that this is a super good tool to use, particularly for your interested homeowners.
Right. No guessing. You can actually see what's going to happen. Exactly. Let's pick this sample condo and let's pop right into uPlanIt. And let's take a look at this place. They have site assets, building interiors, building exteriors, pool area. So let's go right in and let's say they were able to, you saw there's 1% interest. Let's say they're trying to figure out what happens if we get 1 point. Well, let's take a look at it. They are on a full funding plan at $54.60 per month. And let's see what happens if they're able to get 1.5% interest. Whoops, that's not
That would
real.
be fantastic.
That would be
15,
fantastic. It's
go.
also not
Put
real.
it in.
What do you want to do? New starting balance. Let's say they found a CD that they'd forgotten about.
Okay. Yep.
50 grand.
Round to that. Yep.
So let's make it 126, 100. Good for them. Let's save. Let's start seeing what kind of difference this makes. Oh, wow. You can see that it was 54.60. What's a comparable full funding plan now with this scenario? And 52.30. We could probably even go a little bit less, 5,200. Recalculate, or maybe even a hair less. But yeah, this is a reasonable plan. So let's, what do you say? Do you think this board can do that, or what do you think? They were coming, I think this property was coming from making only reserve contributions of about 2,000. So my thinking is they might find a jump to 50, even 5,200 a little too strong.
Right. That's a bit high of an increase, right?
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what happens if we go down to 4,000. Ooh, crash and burn. Okay, I was going to test 3,000, but clearly 4,000 doesn't quite work. But 4,000 does work for about 10 years. So you want to try what we call an exercise plan?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, let's do that. So an exercise plan is what we call a funding profile. Let me back up a little bit. This is a funding profile that we call nice and smooth. It floats gradually upward with inflation. Right now, it's 3% for the first 25 years and then 2.5% for these last 5, and you can't really tell the difference. Let's do something different. Let's go 5% for the first 10 years and see if that gets us, not quite.
Move it up a little bit, but not enough.
Yeah, let's say 10% maybe for 5 years. Try that. Ooh, boy, I like that. You would almost think that we had rehearsed this one. But let's say they say, okay, that works, but
that 4,000 is still a little too
4,000 is a little hard for us. So let's do 3,500 and let's go 3,750, something like that. You can see how this is kind of a workshop type of deal. And if I was to look at this, I would say this is a couple of danger points, but they're out 10 plus years. They're able to start at a realistic number and work it up for a few years. Jackie, might this be a plan that a board could begin to start working with?
Well, they could start this way, right? They've got, if they're not, they've got those big projects going along, and it's a good start, right?
Yeah.
But
well, how about this? How about we let them run for 10 years at 10%?
That's going to make a big difference.
Oh, that's okay. Good. Well, that tells me that they weren't far from having enough to get through that tough point.
Right.
Oh, even 6. That's not too bad. They'll have to be careful on these 2 years, but this is a reasonable plan that can get them with sufficient funds for their projects. And oh wow,
big year right there.
That's their big year. And here's their second big year, and that's exactly why they have the drops.
Yeah.
Okay, well, they could then go back and start seeing if their components have any kind of flexibility or not. But again, this is exactly what we want to do here, kind of show what to do with the funding plan. Again, if you like it, print it, get a record of it. I'm going to show it just for the purpose of this demonstration that we can reset it to what we started with. And we'll go back to the control panel and reset. And that's only if they want to leave a clean house. And here we are back at the Reserve Study Original, which is exactly what you would see if you printed the PDF. Okay?
Perfect.
All right. Okay, well, let's do something else now. Let's talk about another element of what uPlanIt can do. Let's show now how to get components into uPlanIt, whether it's some new components that you want to add to your reserved component list, or if you've signed up for a subscription to this tool and you need to import your own reserve components, or maybe components from a prior reserve study, maybe even from a different company. So what are we going to do here? Well, there's two kinds of things we're going to do. We're going to import from scratch where nothing exists, or you can import into an existing component list. So let's go down that path. And Jackie, we have a demonstration blank.
So this is
project
for a
here.
client that is not working with Association Reserves, does not have a component list in our database, correct?
Correct. So this is someone who says uPlanIt's cool, we want it, and for $149 a year, this is what they get. They get access to it, and they open it up and they say, wow, there is nothing here. Mm-hmm. And we say, well, that's correct. We never worked with you before. But let's say this association has a reserve study that they've done in-house, or one that they've had a prior reserve study that they want to work with and adjust here. And let's see if I can show you that.
Is there certain file types that they are to use?
Yes, I was just going to show, I made a couple in advance, but what we're going to show here is to import a component list, you use the import inventory button. And we have a template. So if you want the template, you click here and it will download. And I can click to look at that. It says welcome, enable the editing, and it's a nice blank file here that you can, into which you can import your component list. And that's exactly what I've created in a few situations. So let me do that. I've copy pasted some components, and I've got a demo one here. I'll just double click that. I'm going to append, I got to add to, and there it is. And this is from Sharon's in-house reserve study, and this is their components. So it saves having to add components one by one by one by one by one. So all their stuff here. And if this was from a couple of years ago, then you'd edit it. You would do as we did before, change some of the numbers, drop that down a couple of years, maybe increase the cost a little bit, 6,000, whatever it is. But now you'd begin to work with this, and this is how you can import something in bulk. Now, let's say Sharon was responsible for only the common area type things, and they have another whole chapter worth of recreational assets. So again, I've downloaded the template. I'm going to import their recreation area components. And I'm going to append, and you look here and you say, wow, nothing happened. Well, it appended their recreation assets onto the bottom of the list. And here you see the pool and spa and tennis court and barbecue, all that kind of good stuff. And now they've really got something they can work with here. And let's say, what's a good starting balance?
Let's go 100,000.
Okay, I like that. 1% interest, 3% inflation. Those are fair starting points. Let's go to recommendations. And ooh, they're only 5% funded. So this must be a huge association. Let's go back and look at the components.
Yeah.
And yes, citing 1.1 million. Yeah, I think we need to make this a bigger number. How about 800 grand?
How about 800,000?
I like that. Yeah. Let's try that. And yeah, that'll at least put them in the ballpark. And they can now use the solver tools to get a funding plan. full funding or baseline funding, 178,000, and this is an annual. Okay, so 178 grand per year, or 111,000 if they just want to do baseline. Sets up the whole profile for you. And what do they have? Yes, they've got some big projects out here. But this is, what are we demonstrating? We're demonstrating importing. So this is how you import, and all of a sudden you're using the tool. And if I haven't, I should save, just to make sure that you've locked in these things so they'll be there when you come back. And let's say one more thing. Let's say whether it's a brand new association to us, or you have an existing uPlanIt account because you've had a completed reserve study with our firm, you just want to import a number of components. So that's what this import button is over here. This imports inventory to this chapter. So let's do that. Let's import, and again with a template, and I've got a little append group of components, and what I've done is add a series of 991, 92, 93, 94, 95s. So that little append added to this chapter. I could do the same thing down here, but of course I wouldn't want to do that unless I deleted them from here or reset and started all the way back from scratch. Because Sharon realized that, oh, that was my file from 2015, not my file from 2019. And it's a lot easier just to delete it and re-import a component list than try to edit all those components. Fair enough?
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, let's get back to the PowerPoint.
There we go.
There we go. And bring this presentation to its completion. Well, what we have here is, we call it uPlanIt, a great tool, and we've described it as a novel online reserve calculator. But what it really does, we feel, is eliminate the frustration or the wondering. It puts the power of your reserve planning decisions into your own hands, board member and manager, so you can see all those what if type issues. The bottom line is that we understand that it's your association. We stand next to you as your consultant, providing insights, findings, recommendations, answering questions, but you're the one that actually sets the budget. So uPlanIt puts the power into your hands to decide what kind of future you have at your association. Traditionally, we prepare the reserve study. It's full of our findings and our recommendations, and we've described our role as a guide to your future. And in the early years of our company, we prepared printed copies of reserve studies and sent them out in the mail. And back in those years, our copier machine worked hard and our postage bill was high. And it was kind of interesting to be able to hear in the office when it was a busy day, because the copier just kept going. It was kind of a noisy machine. And then we started either emailing them out as PDF files or posting them to our website, kind of how you look for your bank balance by logging into your bank's website. And Jackie, let me ask you, do you know when we prepared our first PDF reserve study?
I do
Have you
not,
heard that story?
actually.
It was September 11th, 2001.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was out of town at a large site inspection, and in the evening I was finishing up a report that I had planned and promised to send out the next day. But at that time, FedEx and UPS were both down. Oh. So I figured it was a good time to test this new tool that we'd been working with. And so I gave it a go. It worked exactly like we had tested. I emailed to the client, and we actually got it to them 2 days early. It was pretty slick. And as we can now say, we never looked back. And now we have uPlanIt. We see it as another generational step forward. In addition to the PDF, the document that you have, you now get an analysis tool you can interact with online right from our web portal, right next to where you see your completed reserve study. And we feel it's kind of like having someone recommend how to get to a destination, but you have the technology in your hands, like your navigation tool on your smartphone, to perhaps make some minor route changes along the way, go at your pace, start a little bit later, make a little side trip, that kind of stuff. It puts that kind of power into your hands. And in case we haven't made it clear, uPlanIt access is free with every completed reserve study. And you can get uPlanIt even if you aren't a current Association Reserve client by buying an annual subscription for $149 per budget season. And it's actually just one of many tools we have for you at Association Reserves. We have a deep resource of articles, videos, and ebooks on our website, all designed to help you have success with your reserve planning. And one new to point out is a book that we published earlier this year called Understanding Reserves. If you want something on your desk or on your bookcase to answer your reserve study questions, ready reference, this is it. You can order a copy straight from Amazon. And if you haven't seen any of our weekly YouTube content, search for Reserve Studies on YouTube and sign up for our channel to get notifications of the weekly new videos. Give the video a like if you find it helpful. And of course, we have an ongoing series of live webinars where we provide tips and training for boards and managers on a variety of financial or leadership topics. So sign up for our email list by scrolling to the bottom of any page on our website, and you'll get notified of these upcoming webinars. And that brings us to the end of today's planned content. So at this time, I'll turn the microphone over to Paige, who will coordinate our Q&A time together. Paige.